We'll let Zoe get settled here. She's very happy right now. And sometimes that's all we want as well. We want to feel content, we want to feel happy, and we want to relieve and release stress in our bodies. So sometimes we have and hold a lot of tightness and tension in our shoulders and upper back. This might be because we're on a computer a lot during the day or any other activity where we're sort of in this position. It could be at the computer, it could be driving, it could be just working in the kitchen or on your phone. So a lot of times when we are doing repetitive activities, we build up tension in our bodies. And it's very common to have that tightness and tension in our shoulders and upper back. So we're going to do a brief yoga practice today that invites a sense of opening and release into that area of the upper back and shoulders. So you might find a comfortable seat with or without a pet on your lap and just start to tune in. So this is just like a little bit of an assessment so that you can really be aware of what you're feeling now. So you might sit on a blanket or another prop and just start to notice how your body feels. Set aside language for a moment and really listen to the sensation. Just observe the sensation that you're feeling. And you might notice that it shifts and changes a little bit. So just observe what you're feeling and see if you can invite a sense of allowing. Just allowing whatever you're feeling to just be as it is. Even if it's discomfort, just see if you can invite a sense of just almost like welcoming this moment as it is. Just allowing whatever you're feeling to just be as it is. And then you might start to tune into your breath. You can have your eyes open or closed. If they're open, just sort of have a soft gaze maybe down in front of you. Watching your breath. Breathe in and out through your nose. Notice the quality of your breath. Is it shallow or deep? Smooth or choppy? Just notice what you're feeling right now. And just invite your lower body to ground a little bit, sinking into the support beneath you. Maintain a nice tall spine. And invite your shoulders to drip away from your ears. Lengthen through your spine. Take a few more breaths here, breathing in and out through your nose. And then take another nice full inhale through your nose and sigh it out. Let it go. And then if your eyes are closed, gently open your eyes and bring your hands on either side of you. Take an inhale, reach your arms out and up, and bring your hands together, bringing them back down to your heart. Remember, this is your practice. Always listen to your body, listen to your breath, and find variations as you need to. Inhale, open your arms out wide. Lower your right hand down beside you and reach up through your left arm. And then as you exhale, come into a side bend over to your right. You might look up, you might look straight ahead, or you might release your neck and look down. Whatever feels good to you. Breathe here. And then inhale, coming back up. Lower your left hand down, reach up through your right arm, and side bend over to your left. Notice how this stretch feels. And again, choose your gaze. And inhale, coming back up. And lower the arms down. Good timing, Zoey. Time to come into table pose. And I'll be offering several variations as we move through the practice today. So this is great for all levels of practitioners. And on some days you might want to do one variation and maybe on another day a different variation. So from table pose with your knees about hip distance apart, wrists about shoulder distance, maybe a little wider, keep your arms straight and lengthen through your spine. Reaching through the crown of your head towards the front of your mat and reaching energetically from your tailbone towards the back of your mat. On your inhale, draw your heart forward, arch into your cow. And exhale, come into your cat, draw your belly in, look to your knees. Continue flowing with your breath. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Notice how your spine feels. Couple more. And then come back to neutral. So just find a little bit of movement that feels good to you, maybe moving your shoulders or hips in a certain way. Just notice how that feels. And then we're going to come into a pose to assess what our shoulders and upper back feels like. So you can do this a number of ways. I'm going to suggest either a puppy pose, child's pose, or down dog. If you're doing child's pose, keep your arms straight as you can, and support your head. If it doesn't quite make it to the mat, use a prop and gently press into your hands. If you're doing puppy, knees about hip distance apart, reach your hands further forward, draw your belly in, and take your hips just slightly back. Make sure your hips aren't in front of your knees. Take your hips just slightly back, forehead to the mat or a block. Just a few breaths. And down dog, another option. Tuck those toes, reach those hips up and back. You can have the legs more straight or a little bent. Lengthen through your spine, ground into your hands and feet, and take your heart in the direction of your toes. So find whatever variation works for you. And after a few breaths, whenever you feel done, lower your knees if you were in down dog, Come back up if you were in puppy or child's. So now we're going to get into a gentle opening for the upper back and shoulders using 2 blocks. Near one end of your mat, you might start with the block for your head at the medium setting or the low setting. And the other block, which is where your upper back is going to be, will be on the low setting. Your shoulders will be above the block. And you can sort of guesstimate the distance between the 2 blocks by spreading your fingers rather, on one hand. The distance between your thumb and your little finger. That's just a guesstimate of how far away to place the blocks from each other. And then come to a seat. Knees are bent. Lower down onto your elbows. And just try to adjust yourself so that you feel the edge of that first block just about at your middle back. Take one hand behind your head, start to lay down on the block, and use your other hand to adjust the block under your head. So if it feels like it's too high, lower it to the medium, or rather lower it to the low setting if it was on the medium. And just notice how it feels on your upper back. Make sure the block feels even. Shoulders should be able to move here. So it should feel like your shoulder blades are partway on that block, but your shoulders have room to move. And then arms out, maybe like a T shape with the arms, or if you want more, you could goalpost the arms, but I find that's a little much. So just relax the upper back and shoulders, and then slowly straighten one leg and then the other. Relax your feet and legs. You can close your eyes and just start to release your shoulders into gravity. Watch your breath. So another variation here, if you would like, you can come back to bending your knees with your feet together, and then open your knees up into a butterfly pose. And this gets into the hips quite nicely. And then when you've had enough of this position, you can slowly bring your knees back up and straighten one leg then the other into that straight leg position. So really start to focus on your breath and invite each exhale to be an invitation for your shoulders to start to relax and release a little bit more. Make sure your neck is comfortable. And just invite your shoulders to drip towards the earth. Watching your breath, breathing in and out through your nose. And then if your legs are in that butterfly position, you can thoughtfully bring them back up and then slowly straighten one leg and then the other and relax here. Take another breath here. Nice full inhale. And maybe a soft sigh of an exhale. Let it go. Thoughtfully bend one knee and then the other. Bring your arms in a little closer to your body. Bring one hand behind your neck. Lift your head, support your head with that one hand, and then thoughtfully bring yourself back up to a seat and pause. Notice sensation. It might feel like you still have a block on your upper back. Notice that sensation. So we're going to do a couple other poses to get into the upper back and shoulders. So this time we're going to be using 2 blocks. If your forehead doesn't quite make it to the mat, you can use a blanket in between the blocks to rest your head on. And I can't demonstrate with this blanket because Zoey is on it. Get another blanket. I have plenty of blankets. So if you have another blanket, you can always sort of fold it narrowly and place it in between the blocks. And you may not need it, but just an option. So from table pose, bring your forearms onto the blocks. And there are several variations you can do here with your hip position. I'll demonstrate several, and you might find a new one. You never know. So bring your elbows onto the blocks, hands in prayer position. And you can move your knees back a little bit, staying with the knees about hip distance apart. And then bring your forehead to the mat or the blanket. And bring your hands in a prayer position right to the upper back. So that's one option. Another option to get into the hips a little more is to bring your knees closer to the blocks, a little wider, toes touch. And if you sit your hips back, it's sort of like a child's pose. If you want more into the hips, separate your feet slightly, wide child's pose. And then bring your head to the mat or the blanket, keeping elbows on the blocks. So it might seem like you're not getting enough stretch. In that case, you can turn the blocks up to the medium setting. And maybe it's just like one shoulder needs a little more. If one shoulder is a little crankier, maybe you have that elbow onto a lower block. So find your variation, and we'll stay here for a few more breaths. Make sure you're drawing your core in gently. So you're engaging your core, protecting the low back. And again, just an option. If the blocks are too much, you can always just come elbows to the mat. Find your variation. You should feel this in the upper back and shoulder area. And then slowly and thoughtfully bring yourself back up. Set your blocks aside. Notice sensation. So now we're going to come into thread the needle for the upper back and shoulders. It's a little twist and stretch. So from table pose, reach your left arm out to the side for a little twist to your left, and then thread it under your right. Moving your right hand slightly forward, come onto your left shoulder, left side of your head. Any variation with that right hand. And if the mat seems too far away, you might place a blanket or a block under your head. And then press back up from your right hand and pause. So another variation, if thread the needle is too awkward, is to simply reach your left hand in front of your right hand, reaching towards the right corner of your mat, keeping your left arm straight. Start to bend your right arm and lower your left shoulder towards the mat as you look to the right. And I call this looking under the bed pose. You can feel a nice stretch along your left side body as you sort of look like you're looking under the bed. And then slowly bring yourself back up. So whichever of those variations works for you, we'll do the other side. So thread the needle, your right arm reaches out to the right, and then underneath the left, coming onto your right shoulder, right side of the head. Any variation with that left hand or arm. Pressing back up through that left hand. And again, the other option, looking under the bed pose. Reach your right hand towards the left corner of your mat. Keep your right arm straight. Bend your left arm. Lower your right shoulder a little bit as you look to your left like you're looking under the bed. Maybe finding some dust bunnies. So finding your variation. And then bring yourself back up, coming to any position for a moment, and just pause. Notice sensation. So we're going to do another gentle opening for the upper back and shoulders. So this next one for the upper back and shoulders uses a blanket, or you can use a towel. Opening up the blanket or towel so that it's been folded maybe in half and then in half again. So it's something along this shape. And then start to roll it from the folded edge. Getting a nice tight roll. Smoothing it out as best you can. And place that rolled blanket across your mat so you have about a foot or more of space above the blanket. Position yourself to sit in front of the rolled blanket, and we're going to have our upper back on the blanket. So from here, start to lay back and position yourself, hold your head with one hand. Position yourself over the blanket so your shoulders are well above the blanket. You may need another blanket under your head if it feels like your head is going back too much. You can also use a block, but sometimes that's too much. And then as you thoughtfully position your head down, straighten your arms out. Shoulders will probably be a little above the mat. They may or may not touch. It's totally fine. And initially it might feel like, oh, that's tight in the upper back. So we want to relax here. So thoughtfully straighten one leg and then the other. So this is similar to doing those blocks under our upper back that we were doing before. So we really want to encourage the upper back to soften and release. It should feel like the blanket is sort of behind your heart. It should feel like you're getting a lift of your heart as you lay here. And again, if it feels at all like you're feeling anxious or stressed in this position of your head, place a blanket or a low block, like maybe just a 3-inch block, under your head. You can also unroll the blanket so it's not as thick. That can sometimes be helpful. The part of the blanket that's unrolled, you can rest your head on. So as you lay here, start to really soften and relax into the upper back and shoulders, as if you're inviting your upper back and shoulders to melt over the blanket. So here we're going to do some soft sighs of an exhale through the mouth. So inhale through your nose and exhale, sigh it out. With each soft sigh, relax your jaw, letting your jaw just sort of release and be heavy. And at the same time, inviting your shoulders and upper back to relax and release a little bit more. A few more breaths here. One more breath. And then thoughtfully bring your arms in a little closer, maybe upper arms on the blanket. Bend one knee and then the other. Bring one hand behind your neck. Help to lift your head with that hand. And then thoughtfully roll over to one side and press your way back up to a seat and pause. Notice sensation. That pose sometimes can really be a great myofascial release, getting into the fascia as well as the muscles. Notice sensation in your upper back and shoulders. Maybe tingling, maybe sort of energy or sensation. Notice what you're feeling. And then set that blanket aside and come back to the pose you did earlier, whether it was child's pose, down dog, or puppy pose. And notice how your upper back and shoulders feel now. Notice if there's a sense of more openness or spaciousness in the upper back and shoulders. If you were in down dog, you might notice the legs are still feeling tight. Check out my other video for that, getting into the hamstrings. If you're in puppy pose, notice the upper back and shoulders. Especially into the upper back. And then come back up and pause. Notice sensation. So that was mostly into the upper back, a little bit into the shoulders. I hope you liked that brief practice today. If you liked it, please hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And I look forward to seeing you next time on the mats. Thank you, everyone.